Hello everybody, welcome back to the Texas Podcast. I am your host Gabe, and today we'll be talking about the Battle of Brownsville. The Battle of Brownsville took place on November 2nd through the 6th, 1863 during the American Civil War. It was a successful effort on behalf of the Union Army to disrupt Confederate blockade runners along the Gulf Coast in Texas. The Union assault precipitated the capture of Matamoros by a force of Mexican patriots led by exile officers living in Brownsville. During the first half of the war, the Union Navy had successfully blockaded many southern ports along the Gulf Coast. Cotton trade was a major economic asset for Texas and the whole Confederacy. Initially, cotton was transported to Brazos-Santiago Pass at the delta of the Rio Grande and exported from Port Isabel. Union forces captured this port and the trade was moved inland to Brownsville, Texas. From Brownsville, goods were transported across the border to Matamoros and from there to neutral ports along the Mexican coast. The U.S. government was also anxious to show Union presence along the Mexican border since the French army had just invaded Mexico and installed Maximilian as emperor. Following the Union debacle at the Second Battle of Sabine Pass, the U.S. government demanded General Nathaniel P. Banks, commanding the Department of the Gulf, to make another attempt at invading Texas. Nathaniel Banks assembled 6,000 soldiers from 3 brigades in Napoleon J.T. Dana's 13th Corps. Confederate forces in the area were commanded by General Hamilton P. Bees. Bees' forces consisted of a mere 4 companies with the 33rd Texas Cavalry under Colonel James Duff and another 2 companies of 3-month volunteers. All other Confederates along the coast had been called elsewhere in the wake of the Union attack at Sabine Pass. The total Confederate force amounted to roughly 150 men stationed at Fort Brown. 1 company of volunteers under Captain Adrian I. Vidal defected, killing a private and wounding another from the 33rd Texas. Banks landed the expedition at the mouth of the Rio Grande on November 2, 1863. B dispatched 2 companies of his cavalry to observe and report on the Union landing. Company A, under Captain Richard Taylor, arrived at the mouth of the Rio Grande, while Company F, under Captain Henry Davis, arrived at Point Isabel further north. On November 2nd, Captain Taylor informed General B that the Union forces had landed cavalry, while B made preparatory orders for the evacuation of Brownsville. Colonel William M. Dye's brigade led the Union advance. After chasing off Taylor's Confederate cavalry, Dye's men entered the Brownsville around 10 a.m. on November 6, 1863. General B quickly ordered the evacuation of the city and abandoned Fort Brown. He personally supervised the burning of what military supplies and cotton he could. Inside the fort was 8,000 pounds of condemned explosive, which caused a great explosion, much to the terror of the local citizens. The Confederates' destruction spread into the city while the soldiers resorted to looting, prompting the local citizens into a degree of opposition. A local resident by the name of General Jose Maria Cabos was a Mexican general and a refugee living in exile due to the recent French invasion. General Cabos received permission from the civilian authorities in Brownsville to organize a force to resist the looters and subdue the fires started by the Confederate evacuation. Around noon, General Banks personally arrived in the city, and by 4 p.m. the remaining Union forces arrived. Colonel Dye was put in command of the post and the Union Army encamped in the city. The Army barracks at Fort Brown having been destroyed, the Union forces also captured a large supply of cotton left behind by the Confederates. The loss of Brownsville significantly disrupted Confederate cotton trade. The new trade route into Mexico lay roughly 300 miles northwest. Brownsville provided a base for further Union operations against Mustang Island and Fort Esperanza up the Texas coast. General Cobos took his vigilante force across the border and seized control of Matamoros. There he continued to be a concern to General Banks. General Banks' Confederate forces made an attempt to recapture Brownsville in 1864. Colonel John S. Rip Ford assembled a large force of cavalry, but on July 30, 1864, Ford found a new Union commander, Francis J. Herron, who had already abandoned Brownsville. The Confederates were able to reoccupy the city without a fight. That is all for the Battle of Brownsville. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.